When did the romantic relationship between the two of you start?
Yeah, so we get into. There's been this effort to say that, okay, these exact dates are at issue, and these exact dates are. I'm getting signaled here.
Yeah, take it. You want to go off mic for a second?
Yes.
Okay. Go off mic for a second.
Keep rolling.
Yeah, keep rolling. Don't stop now. Stay at speed.
Attorney Nathan Wade's team interrupted his interview with CNN's Caitlin Collins after she asked him when he began his romantic relationship with Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. Now, this is, of course, an incredibly sensitive matter since it is that very same romantic relationship that has essentially put the Georgia election interference case against Donald Trump and his co-conspirators on hold. Now, I want to give you some more context before we go back to the exchange with Caitlin Collins and Nathan Wade. So in January, the lawyer for Mike Roman, one of the co-conspirators in the election interference case, argued that Fani Willis had a romantic relationship with Wade and chose him as the special prosecutor in the case. Now, the filing asserted that Willis basically went on vacations with Wade, and so Willis herself profited off of basically hiring him, appointing him to this role, which would be a conflict of interest. Now, Roman's lawyer requested that the charges against Roman be dropped. That didn't happen. And also requested that Fani Willis be disqualified from the case. That also didn't happen. Willis is unwilling to recuse herself from the election interference case. And then on March 15th, the judge overseeing the case, Judge McAfee, essentially ruled that either Willis, along with her office, step down from the case, or Wade leave the case. And Wade decided that he was going to step down. That is what has happened. But the whole saga is not over yet because, as you guys can imagine, Trump's legal team is incredibly persistent. Trump has had quite a bit of experience when it comes to things like lawsuits and now criminal prosecutions. And so on May 8th, the Georgia Court of Appeals said that it would hear an appeal to dismiss Fani Willis. And on June 5th, they made a decision to pause the election interference case or the election racketeering case until it decides Willis's fate. Oral arguments are tentatively scheduled for October 4th. So with that in mind, with that context in mind, let's go back to this interview.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
In fact, I have to ask you, Waz, you saw a little bit of the exchange with Caitlin Collins. You saw Nathan Wade's team essentially interrupt that awkward moment of the interview to speak with him. I'm really curious what you think, because there's some portion of the audience that doesn't like that I've been critical of how irresponsible Fani Willis was in.
What?
They think it's unfair, but I don't think it's
who?
I guess it's unfair because I'm not supposed to criticize the woman who's prosecuting Donald Trump, but I'm not criticizing her for prosecuting Donald Trump. I'm criticizing her for being so irresponsible in her decision making that she has jeopardized this case.
She has jeopardized the case by her actions. Now, we can get to that separately. As far as this interview and this interruption, amateur hour. There's no other way to put this. You look like, how do you go on CNN knowing why you're going up there and don't have an answer to that question? Even if it's like, yo, that's a personal matter between me and District Attorney Willis, I'm not gonna talk about it here on CNN. That's nobody's business. I've recused myself. I've moved on. It's become something of a mess. This case is too important. I'm out of here. You know what I mean? You gotta have something to say to that. He started equivocating. He started being like, well, you know, the thing is, man, people making a big deal. Man, yeah, she might have been in my place. I don't, hold up, man. Wait, bro, stop it. You knew what they were gonna ask you about. Like, this is amateur hour. And I'm sorry, Fani Willis, she has not covered herself in glory. She blew it, guys. I'm sorry, if you wanted Trump to go down for this in a timely manner that could actually affect his election, which I assume is what people actually care about. She blew it by putting her boyfriend on the case, her side piece, her whatever, her situationship, whatever we're calling it, whatever y'all want to call it. Putting this guy on the case was a mistake. This like, I don't want to hear about double standards and yada yada yada. You're prosecuting the former president of the United States of America. This case is gonna have plenty of eyes on it, plenty of scrutiny. Instead of dotting your I's and crossing your T's, you put your boo thing on the case. It's crazy. I'm sorry.
Oh my God, you're killing me, Ross.
That is, I'm sorry. If anybody thinks that she didn't do anything wrong, or that this is like a mistake that's within the Overton window, to borrow a Ben Shapiro phrase, right? Like, if this mistake was like reasonable mistake, reasonable people could have made it. That's not true. You're trying to take down the president, the former president of the United States, and what you do is you get the dude that you're dating. Really?
Yeah, it was definitely a terrible decision. And look, we all make mistakes. It doesn't mean that she's a bad person. Okay, she made a mistake.
She's not a bad person.
But
hubris.
But it's also important to keep in mind that when you make a mistake, don't further compound that mistake. And in this case, I believe that Nathan Wade agreeing to this interview was a mistake. Okay, huge mistake.
How can you disagree with that? Look at the results of the interview. Disaster.
Well, you're about to get a little more of that disaster in this next clip.
We asked.
Everything okay?
Yeah.
Just to revisit the question, it was to clarify when the romantic relationship started and when it ended.
Sure. So, I believe that the public has, through the testimony and other interviews, the public has a clear snapshot that this is clearly just a distraction. It is not a relevant issue in this case, and I think that we should be focusing on more of the facts and the indictment in the case.
The other thing I'll say is clearly he's having difficulty making a case for himself. He was the lead prosecutor. I'm worried about how he would make a case against Trump. Like,
bro, it's Kate Hollins. What in the hell, bro? Like, what are we doing? Like, you would have thought this man had the guillotine to his neck. The way he was talking, like, bruh. First of all, I don't even think that's a bad way to do it. Oftentimes in PR, people will say, if you don't like the question, answer a different one. Like, I don't even think deflecting is a horrible way to do it, but the hemming and hawing, the way that, like, he can't even come out and say, you don't actually believe what you're saying. You don't believe that this is irrelevant. You don't believe that. You know this is wholly irrelevant. And if somebody is, say a jury in this case, I'm sorry, man. If they want to be like, yo, the credibility of this case, the woman who brought it up, she's like bringing her boyfriend into court. And it's like, I'm not saying that's justified. They have plenty of incredible evidence to back what they're asserting in court. I mean, you just got to be tighter than this. This is nasty.
I totally agree. Now, obviously, Wade is attempting to evade the question, and he's doing so by saying that his relationship with Fani Willis wasn't important. It's just a distraction.
Immaterial, right?
But Collins,
how'd you get the job?
Well, Collins pressed ahead and explained why she feels it's important that he answer the question. So let's see how he handled that.
Obviously, it's still a pending matter. It's going to be before the Court of Appeals. And you talked about how proud you were of all the work that you did in this office. And I think the question that people have when they hear from the Court of Appeals, this isn't happening until next spring, is did the relationship jeopardize that work that you did in this investigation?
And therein lies the issue. Why we wouldn't touch upon the work of the Court of Appeals or some higher court, because it's a pending issue before them.
You were asked on the stand about when it started and when it ended. It just wasn't completely clear, because before it said before the indictment, which was August 15th here in Atlanta, and then later the answer was at the end of that year. And so I think that was the clarity that people were seeking of when it started and when it ended.
Sure, and there again, there's a question before the court, and that is the crux of the question. I don't choose to say or do anything that would jeopardize the case or the court's ruling.
So after that very portion of the interview, Collins then asked if Wade, regrets his relationship with Fani Willis, and he just straight out said, no, of course not. And look, I don't think he does regret his relationship with her, but I do wish that maybe the two of them reconsidered the decision they made to have him serve as the lead prosecutor in this case, given their intimate relationship with one another and how it has, in fact, jeopardized the case. Again, it's very unlikely. It's not going to happen. We're not going to have a trial before the presidential election.
And it's all their fault.
Yeah, pretty much. It is. It's true.
And how could he regret it, Anna, if he's still getting them draws? Come on now. He's not gonna say he regretted if he's still. That's why he couldn't answer the question. Like, what do you mean? When did it end? Oh, come on now. She was just at the crib having steak dinner last night. Come on.
Okay. We don't know that. We do not know that.
It sure seemed like it. If I'm just a body language doctor here, it seemed like the posture of this guy when asking when this thing ended, he couldn't say. So who knows?
But if they're in love, love's a beautiful thing. Just gotta separate that from the professionalism that you should obviously use when you're dealing with one of the most important criminal cases in the country. But
by the way,
here we are.
This isn't, let's just say TYT was throwing a party and, Anna knew a florist that she was cool with, that did great work. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with that. You know the person, we want the flower arrangements. Let's get it done. It's gonna be a reasonable price. All right, let's do it. Like, it's just a party. It's fine. There's no worry of some level of impropriety here. Like, it's fine. It's just we're just having a party. There's just some flowers. It's all good. This is the former president of the United States of America.
Yeah. And look, all you have to do is look at Donald Trump's record of court cases, right? The lawsuits, the investigations. Like, he is a seasoned veteran of finding ways to evade the legal system or use the illegal system to his advantage, basically, right? To find the technicalities, to delay the case. And his legal team's doing a masterful job here. And it's
running laps.
I'm just gonna say it. It's so depressing that of the indictments, it was the hush money case. The honestly, the weakest one that Trump ended up getting indicted in. And the most important case is unlikely to go anywhere at all. And definitely not going to go anywhere before the election. So, frustrating.
Yeah. The New York case, guy pays a hooker not to put his business on TV and radio.
Yeah, falsified business documents.
False. Because that's never happened in the history of New York State. We know that's nobody's ever done that before. It's just like, the fact that the smallest potatoes got through. And guess what, though, Anna? I think it speaks to the diligence that the New York court sort of took in crafting their case. They crafted an airtight case of something that you and I both see as small potatoes, but guess what? They got this man dead to rights, and they did it in such a way that it couldn't be reversed and happened in a timely manner.
That's such a good point. I guess Alvin Bragg really does deserve a lot of credit for that because it was the weakest case. It was the small potatoes case. And Bragg managed to get 34 charges.
Come on.
Trump was convicted of the 34 charges of falsifying business documents. So yeah, I wish there was an airtight treatment of literally the most important case, which was the Fulton County, Georgia election interference case.